Well, folks, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. As we look back into the playoff races for the Camping World Truck Series, the Xfinity Series, and the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series as the playoffs have officially begun. So we'll talk about a driver's surprising win in the Truck Series, to a driver's first career win, to a driver's winning streak in the Cup Series. My name is Corey, he's Chris Burns, and welcome to the C+J Speedway Review. And welcome back, folks, to the C+J Speedway Review, as my name is Corey Hoffnagel, and we are going to be covering the playoff races for the Camping World Truck Series, Xfinity, and the Monster Energy Cup Series, as right now the playoffs have officially begun, and all I could just say, guys, is I'm really excited for these playoffs. The only part, even though I'm more excited about Talladega, but as of right now, I'm more excited about the Roval coming up in 2 weeks in Charlotte, and as far as, having a road course in the playoffs, I think it's going to be very interesting, especially in this first round. So let's go to the hotline right now. Always a pleasure to chat with the show, who is also the host of the Loki and Jabroni Show, Mr. Chris Burns. Chris, how are we doing?
Man, I am doing great. What a fantastic job you're doing. Those broadcasting school night things are really paying off. Whatever online college you're going to, man, keep it up. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Man, what a weekend in Vegas. You're right. But I don't want to break anybody's hearts by telling you stuff out of order, but man, just absolutely a fantastic weekend of racing. Truck Series, Xfinity Series, Cup Series. We had a little drama, a little discourse. Might as well start the show off with a little bit of news, and it's no surprise Kevin Harvick and others are calling the Goodyear tires crap.
Yeah.
And then a day later, Harvick sort of rescinds his statement and puts the onus on NASCAR, saying you shouldn't have put this race in Vegas in September when you know there's 100-degree heat in the desert, which will melt the tires quicker.
Right.
And what do you think of his rant?
I think he's absolutely right, because when I first saw the weather a few weeks ago, and this is actually a true fact, so the average temperature in Las Vegas in September is 100 degrees, comparing to when we used to go to New Hampshire twice a year in September. It would always be like upper 70s, like mid 70s, close to 80 degrees and so forth. And, I was actually kind of thinking about that this past week, and I thought to myself, for those race fans that stuck it out in the grandstands in 100-degree weather on Saturday and Sunday, I don't know how they would, but, God bless them all. And it was pretty much like, they'd be sitting out in the grandstands for maybe 15 seconds, if not maybe less, and then you'd have to find shade, so forth whatsoever. But, I would say with Harvick, I mean, I do like that NASCAR had to do 2 races at Las Vegas, especially with the playoffs. But I think if you go to weather-wise, I mean, yeah, 100 degrees, it was too hot. But, if I was them, I would have to say, we should do 2 races a year. But I really think we should take, Vegas out of the September schedule. Probably put it somewhere maybe in November, close to the championship race at Homestead, if you kind of think about it, so forth. But
Switch the Martinsville race.
Right. But if you look at Indianapolis the last few years, when NASCAR used to go in July, it was 95 degrees and the humidity was even higher, and pretty much drivers were complaining, how they were so hot, they were sweating, they were dehydrated. So that was the reason why NASCAR had to move the Indianapolis race from July to September, because the average temperature in Indianapolis is 64 degrees compared to in July it's 89 or so forth. But I really liked what Harvick said, especially with the whole Goodyear rant that he did on Sunday. But I think if I was NASCAR, I would have to say okay, why don't we take Vegas out of the schedule, put it and actually, to rephrase this question, so why don't we just put Vegas second to last race before Homestead?
Sure, if you're going backwards,
right?
Homestead, Vegas, Phoenix, move the
Yeah.
Martinsville race up to, I don't know, this past weekend, but that may have been, unfortunately blindsided by the Hurricane Florence that just came through
Right.
North Carolina. Virginia caught a tail end of that. It would have been rained out. We would have had to see it on Monday or Tuesday or further on in the schedule. It just seems that they all knew. You don't put Phoenix in this early. You don't put Vegas supposedly this early. They've always had Vegas early in February.
Yeah.
So to put it in the heart of summer just didn't make any sense. I thought what Harvick said was not. I thought it was more heat of the moment, and what he
Yeah.
said the next day was if you couple the tires with the heat, with the track temp, with everything going on, and 16 playoff drivers and 24 other drivers, burning up those tires. There were a lot of people with tire issues that we're going to talk about when we cover the Cup race. It was just a formula for disaster. And I'm sure sometime between now and next September, NASCAR is going to have to figure out something in conjunction with Goodyear to come up with a tire compound that's not going to melt and bead and just explode the way some of these tires did this past weekend.
And if you look at it, when they went there back in March, the temperature was like 60 degrees comparing to this past weekend, which was 100. So if you look at it, I think it was like maybe a 30, 40 degree difference between March and September. But that was kind of like the odd part about it, like, going there in the spring compared to going there now. But yeah, I would have to say, I think NASCAR should take a look at, the second Vegas race, and they should decide, okay, maybe we should probably put it somewhere like, second to last race in the playoffs, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I don't disagree with that at all. Do you have any other news you want to cover before we dive in?
So it looks like Dale Earnhardt Jr., which of course he is running the Xfinity race on Friday night, driving for his own team, and he's going to be having four of his cars racing. So apparently he wrote on Twitter, he said, well, actually the race guy asked him a question saying, it's like, so do you think this is going to be the last time you drive in a race car and so forth? So Junior's response goes like this, and I quote, I'll only run races for Junior Motorsports that involve sponsorship package that help fund races for our four teams. So now I'm kind of thinking, okay, so you may see Dale Jr. run a couple of Xfinity races with his own car, depending on if he gets like the sponsorship that he needs, for that 88 team. Because I think if you look at it, the only time the 88 team will run out in the Xfinity race will probably be either the Cup guys of Chase Elliott, maybe Junior, sometimes, maybe Byron, but you may see him like every once in a while. But no, I mean, it would be really cool, like to see like Junior run like a minimal schedule in NASCAR, but then yet again, he still has the job with NBC and so forth.
And I think you might see him in some of the big money races when NBC is not covering the schedule. Daytona,
Right.
Talladega. One of the tracks I know he's always loved is Texas. So look at those early of the 2019 schedule. Chances are you're going to see Junior out there wheeling around. And for what it's worth, that's good for him. And what he said was perfect. If it helps us fund race cars, he's not out to line his own pockets. He's not doing the Harvick, Keselowski, Logano, fill in the name, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, George W. Bush. He's not doing that. He wants to make money for his team to keep his cars properly funded. Go Junior. Can't wait to see you out there on Friday night.
I can't wait either.
Well, speaking of can't waiting, I can't wait to talk about Vegas because these were three of the most fantastic races of the season, starting with Camping World Truck Series, and lo and behold, Mr. Grant Enfinger, surprise winner. What made this so surprising?
I think if you look at it, and when we did our picks last week, I didn't even pick Grant Enfinger to win the race. I didn't even pick him as my favorite or sleeper or whatever. I mean, this was just pretty much like right out of the hat, a guy that, that took home the win on Friday night, and pretty much nobody expected Grant Enfinger to win. I didn't expect him to win, and, with that call from Jeff Hensley, having the no tire strategy, I kind of thought to myself, all right, so if he gets no tires and everyone else takes 4 or 2 tires, they're going to blow right by him on the restart. But sure enough, that 98 team played the right strategy. They did it at the right time, and, they took the lead right at the end and ended up, taking home the win, and they punched their ticket to the next round in the round of 6. And I think if you just look at this race, everybody wanted to win at Las Vegas because now we're going to Talladega in a few weeks where pretty much, Talladega is just that racetrack where anything can happen. You could get caught up in the big wreck that's like not any of your own doing. I mean, things can happen like within a split second, the way I look at it. And now you have guys that have not won a race just yet. And, they have to go down there with the whole must win situation. Guys like Sauter and Rhodes and Crafton and Moffitt and Friesen and Gregson. I could just say this, like, with the Truck Series playoffs this season, I think it's going to be up for grabs because I just look at all those 8 drivers, and either one of those guys could end up, winning the race and move on to the next round. But I think if you go to Talladega, it's going to be a crapshoot, and it's, plus, anything can happen. But I just look at this race on Friday night. You go back to the last restart where I guess Brett Moffitt was leading like near the end of the race. So I thought, all right, so Moffitt's one of those guys that kind of pulls, like a little surprise trick right at the end. So he was leading. And then right when that last caution came out, I know there were some guys that had to save fuel. So right on that last restart, you saw the 16 truck kind of sputter just a little bit. And I just said, okay, that cost him this race. And I just look at Moffitt's playoff races this year. I mean, yeah, it hasn't been too bad. I mean, Vegas, wasn't really the best to show for it, but, really happy with Enfinger. And, it was funny. I actually picked Enfinger to win the race at Talladega because, he's really good when it comes to the super speedway races. But honestly, I never thought he was going to win on a mile and a half.
No, you can say that again. That came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I was really happy for him. I was happy for a lot of these guys, especially the playoff guys, just really cementing themselves as threats going forward because Johnny Sauter has all but run away with the standings, with the exception of Brett Moffitt. It's like they're big 2. The Xfinity Series a little more spread out, going to be a little more exciting. But for guys like Sauter, Moffitt, who didn't have the most stellar day, but it was great to see somebody new, especially Grant Enfinger, get in there, sneak that win, totally surprised everybody, and it made for a great kickoff to an exciting race weekend.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt about it.
So let's break down the finishing order. Once again, Grant Enfinger comes in first, Johnny Sauter second, Justin Haley third, Ben Rhodes fourth, Matt Crafton fifth, Myatt Snyder sixth, Ross Chastain seventh. We'll be talking about him again. Thoreau eighth, Self ninth, and Eggleston 10th. Other notables, Brett Moffitt disappointing at 11. And I say disappointing because I thought he was really going to have a good chance to win pre-race, not during the race.
Yeah.
Going down, Stuart Friesen 17th, not the best day for him. Noah Gragson 18th. John Hunter Nemechek 27th. Cody Coughlin 24th. And let's see, Todd Gilliland 27th. And front row Joe Nemechek, father of John Hunter Nemechek, he of the name Nemechek, 31st. If you had to go with a happy and a sad for this race, where would you go and why would you do it?
All right, so my happy, I would go with the guy that drove the 30 truck this past weekend, Austin Terrio, finishing in 8th. And it's been a while since, Terrio has been in a NASCAR vehicle. And I know the last time he was in a truck at Vegas when he had that hard crash, just, I want to say like 2 years ago when that kind of broke his back, whatever, and he was out for like, I want to say like the remainder of the season. But to come home in 8th place, really good run for that 30 team. And hopefully, Terrio can get a full-time ride in 2019. And my sad, I definitely have to go to Noah Gragson because, I'm really disappointed of how he's doing the first 2 races in the playoffs. I mean, you go to Canada, he had the whole hoopla incident with his teammate, try to wreck his teammate on the last lap, in Canada. And then you go to Vegas, he starts on the pole, finishing 18th. Not really the best of run for this kid, but now he just has to go to Talladega in a must-win situation.
Okay. I got you. I'm going to give my happy to Matt Crafton. Moves his way up to, when we talk about the points, moves his way up to 5th in the points. It was just a really good run for him. He's the elder statesman. Matt Crafton has been on the Truck Series since the Truck Series was born, I believe. So
yeah.
For him to stay that focused, that active, and that competitive, I want to give him a little tip of the hat. My sad went to my lock for the week. Todd Gilliland, 27th. Bad day for him. Oh, can this kid catch a break? Yes, I know we've talked about him before, and he has so much going for him, but to see him this low in the standings for this race, for this one race, just disappointing.
Yeah.
And I know you've looked at Todd Gilliland much like you've looked at Stuart Friesen,
Right.
and you talk about them as, this is the guy, this is the next guy, this is going to be one of those next big things. Gilliland seems to have run into quite a run of bad luck this year.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, I mean, even though he's ran a few truck races last season, but you go to this year, um, let's see, his average finish so far this year is a 12.2, comparing to last year he was an 11.2. So I'm looking at it, I'm going, all right, so he has only 8 top 10s and 3 top 5s, so it's not too bad, but I was expecting him to win a race before the playoffs started, but unfortunately he couldn't get that done, and I know that, his only best shot to win the race was at Bristol, because, he won a K&N Pro East race over there back in March, but if you just look at it, I mean, yeah, there's still a lot of learning curves that this kid is going to have to learn by the end of this season, and then I would say next year, he'll finally figure it out, and of course, he's going to have to race at those tracks where he never raced at before, because of course, he wasn't 18 just yet, but I just look at Gilliland. I mean, yeah, he's the son of David, and of course, David, ran in the Cup Series for a little while, and I remember when David used to run on the restrictor plate tracks really well, and so
Oh,
forth.
absolutely.
But I'd have to say, for him, teaching his son what to do and what not to do in racing, I think that was pretty cool, and I think you're going to see a lot out of this kid next year, and and I'd probably say don't be surprised if he ends up winning a couple races next season.
I was just going to say something similar. I wasn't going to say anything about winning races, but you're right. He could very well come home with 2, 3 wins. I say next year, look for Todd Gilliland in your championship 8.
Oh, I definitely agree.
All right, well, let's break down the points after this is week 2 of the Truck Series playoffs.
Yes.
Johnny Sauter leads your pack with 21.24. Noah Gregson second with 21.07. Brett Moffitt third with 21.02. Justin Haley fourth with 21.01. Matt Crafton fifth with 20.91. That's a number that's special to me, and I'll never tell you why. Number 6 is Grant Enfinger, 20.89. Ben Rhodes is 7th, 20.84. And Stuart Friesen brings up the bottom of the pack with 20.81. I know we're 2 races in. The next race is a cutoff race. They cut out 2 drivers, correct?
Yes.
Which 2 are getting bumped?
All
Get
right.
to pick right now. Obviously, Enfinger has punched his ticket, and Sauter, I believe, has punched his ticket.
Yeah,
okay, let's take those 2 out of the equation.
Yeah. All right, so I have to say, if I had to pick my 2 right now, one would definitely have to be Ben Rhodes because, obviously, of course, had the 1 win, but I just don't see him going anywhere. And quite frankly enough, and this was kind of my tough one to pick, but my other one would definitely have to be Friesen.
So I went the other way. I also had Ben Rhodes, but I look at the way the season has played out. We talk about Bad Luck Jones all the time. I almost look at next week and see Matt Crafton having one of those days. Even though this week he had a fantastic run and he really, made the push to move up the standings, I don't see Matt Crafton moving forward. So I'm going to go Rhodes and Crafton while you're going Rhodes and Friesen.
Right.
All right. Well, we'll talk about this next week when it comes to pass, and we'll find out. Heck, who knows? As close as these points are between, say, 4th of Justin Haley and 8th of Stuart Friesen, you're only talking about 20 points. Anything can happen. But Grant Enfinger, with that win, punches his ticket, sits in 6th. He has nothing to worry about. Really, it's
nothing to lose at this point.
Exactly. Haley, Crafton, Rhodes, Friesen. We'll see which 2 of those 4 are going to get bumped out. But I would hate to see any of them get bumped out. This has been a really great truck season, and I'm almost upset that it's coming to an end. I wish they could just throw 36 more races on the schedule.
I definitely agree on that.
Well, then we move on to the Xfinity Series on Saturday. I got to watch the Xfinity Series. Can you believe this? I got to watch the Xfinity Series. It was fantastic. And then right when it was over, I watched the mighty Ohio State Buckeyes win. But the DC Solar 300 saw Ross Chastain wheel himself to a victory. And when I say a victory, I don't just mean a victory, Corey. And I know you watched this race. We were texting back and forth during the race. Ross Chastain came to Vegas, walked into the house, kissed the wife, played with the kids, took all the money, and went home with the trophy. Domination was Ross Chastain. 180 laps led. He was on fire.
Yeah.
And I don't mean the kind of fire that he started with Kevin Harvick a couple weeks ago. I mean
Right.
the kind of fire that you want to have underneath you to go out and dominate a race like this. I did not see this coming. I actually was looking toward the late laps. One of the last restarts, I thought maybe Allgaier or Custer or Bell was going to give him something, give him a little challenge. Heck no, that didn't happen. Ross Chastain just basically told everybody, follow me, kids. I'm showing you where to go.
Mm.
What did you think?
Honestly, like, I knew this was coming because you look at his first race in the 42 at Darlington a few weeks ago. I mean, he pretty much had, if not the winning car to win the race down in South Carolina, but then he ended up getting the skirmish with Kevin Harvick, which pretty much ruined his day. And he pretty much fully admitted after that. He said, well, now I'm never going to get a chance to get an opportunity, whatever, because I kind of screwed up, yada, 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 and so forth. And pretty much Chip Ganassi came in and said, you know what, we're going to give this kid a chance for the next two races. And, goes to Las Vegas, does the same thing, dominate, win all three stages, and more importantly, win the race. And I just look at it and I say to myself, with that amount of talent that Chastain had that day, especially winning in the 42 car, I thought somebody out there right now is going to be looking at this kid and they're going to be saying, okay, we're going to want this guy, because you look at Ryan Preece. I mean, when he stepped into the 20 car last year for Joe Gibbs Racing, nobody knew what to expect. He ends up finishing second at New Hampshire, then winning at Iowa, his second time outing, and then Gibbs pretty much saw him as a potential, saying, you know what, why don't we put him in our car, next season, give him like a part-time schedule, see what this kid can do. And there was actually a radio interview on Sirius XM Speedway, I think on Monday or something, and pretty much Corey LaJoy, and what he said, I thought this was fantastic. He said, oh, if Ross Chastain, could end up doing that, then we could probably end up doing that as well, because, here's a guy that, has drove for JD Motorsports in the Xfinity series for the last few years. And, yeah, I mean, JD Motorsports is pretty much an average team. They finish like in the top 15, top 20 almost every single week. But when Chip Ganassi asked him to drive 3 races in the 42 car, I was kind of skeptic at first, but then I thought, you know what? I want to see what this kid can do, because he actually drove in the truck series for Brad Keselowski for like 1 year or so. And, almost won the race, didn't get it done. And then you go to this past Sunday. Yeah, he wins the race, for Ganassi. And I just thought, and this was also another theory that I kind of thought of. So now that the playoffs are starting on Friday at Richmond, I really think Chip Ganassi should probably look at this kid and say, you know what? Why don't we give this kid a chance? Why don't we put him in the 42 car, during the whole playoffs, see if he can go to the championship 4 and try and win the title. But the problem is, you have those drivers that are in that lineup schedule, whatever, guys like Larson and Nemechek, and then Justin Marks, who's only going to run the Roval at Charlotte in 2 weeks. And then, of course, you got John Hunter Nemechek, who's going to close out the season whatsoever. So if I was Chip Ganassi, I would just say, you know what? Why don't we put him in the 42 car in the playoffs, see where he can go. If he can win the championship, great. And if he doesn't pull it off, we can pretty much say, you know what? This kid did a really great job. We have to give our hats off to him. And, hopefully some other big team owner can look at him and say, you know what? We'll get him in our full-time ride next year.
Not a bad idea. And if Chip Ganassi is serious about grooming Ross Chastain, why not look at that empty seat in the 1 car? Give him somewhere between 6 and 10 races on the Cup schedule just to get a feel for the Cup schedule. Not that Ross Chastain's not already in the 15, but it's an underfunded car. Let's be completely clear. Give Ross Chastain good equipment, good engines, good chassis, good everything, good crew, and see what he can do wheeling a car from a top team.
Right.
Groom him for that next level. Because when I watch some of these races, and I'm going to peel back. I don't know if I have any here. Maybe I can just peel back this week's before we get to the Cup race. Let me see how many underfunded guys performed. We already know Jamie McMurray had issues in the race, so I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of the underfunded teams finished 24th or lower. Chastain in his car finished 20th, not the worst thing ever. A couple of guys got, I would say, a tip of the hat only because we lost so many drivers. We'll talk about that in a few minutes, about how many drivers we lost in that race to accidents, to tires, to et cetera, so forth.
Yeah.
But throw Chastain in a part-time car. Yes, the 42 was already taken. That's Kyle Larson. The one car is up in the air right now. So whoever you put in that one car, if you're not willing to have them be championship potential, split the season. You got 36 races. Give the one guy, say, I don't know, 24, and give Chastain the other 12. I'm quite sure he could go back to the 15. He can run a full schedule. He's not going to run for a championship because right now the Xfinity Series looks to be the house that Ross is building for himself.
Right.
So why not? Chip Ganassi, if you're listening, make it so. And also, Ross Chastain, if you're listening, obviously you didn't listen to my rant 2 weeks ago. You have no reason to feel that you're not going to get an opportunity. What you did was set your mark against a veteran. I am not going to put up with your old school BS, and I forced the issue. I said it then, I'm going to say it again. Good for Ross Chastain.
Awesome job for Chastain. And actually, he has one more ride in the 42 car on Friday.
Now, did I not hear during those closing laps that Ross Chastain had asked the 4 team of Kevin Harvick from the Cup Series to join him in victory lane to thank them for putting that fire under him?
I think I heard that comment on Saturday, if I remember.
I know I was drinking during the Ohio State game, but I was not drinking during the Xfinity race. I swear on my daughter's eyesight, that's what I heard.
Right. Although it would have been funny if Harvick went to victory lane and congratulated him.
Oh, it would have been great. I think it would have been the hugest tip of the hat from a vet to a young guy saying, you know what, kid, you earned it. But let's go down the results of the DC Solar 300. Once again, Ross Chastain is your winner. Justin Allgaier comes home second. Cole Custer third. Christopher Bell fourth. Elliott Sadler fifth. Ryan Preece was sixth. Brandon Jones seventh. Ryan Truex eighth. Austin Cindric ninth. And Spencer Gallagher. Boy, what would have been for that kid.
What would have been.
Right, poor kid. Well, not poor kid. You made a decision. Come on. Anyway, let's not get into it.
Anyways,
other notables. J.J. Yaley accidentally finished 11th. We go down the list. I say that because for years when he was on the Cup circuit, he wrecked everything except the hot dog stand.
Or pretty much what Bill Elliott said when he said in his interview at Road America. He said, "I hit everything except the lottery."
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I swear, J.J. Yaley was Manica with a mustache. I swear.
Yeah.
Anyway, I shouldn't pick on Manica, and there's reasons for that.
Yeah.
Because I hate the Packers. F them. Let's see. Where are we at? Not a whole lot of notables till you get down a little further. Tyler Reddick, 28th. Daniel Hemrick, 29th. Chase Briscoe, 31st. Ryan Reed, 35th. Matt Tiff, 36th. Michael Annett finished 40th, which means Jeff Green did not finish last. He finished second to last.
Awesome.
Jeff Green, go home. Seriously. Your wife loves you. Your kids love you. Go home.
Yeah.
If you have a happy and a sad for this race, who are they and why?
All right, so my happy for this one would definitely have to go to, I would say, Ryan Preece, because, had a really good run in that 18 car on Saturday. Looking forward to seeing what this kid can do in the playoffs if he does have enough races on his schedule for the next few races this year. So my sad for this one would definitely have to go to Daniel Hemrick. I mean, disappointed the way how that team turned out. not only they had to start in the back because of qualifying issues and whatever, but ends up getting in a wreck with his teammate Shane Lee near the end of the race. So yeah, disappointing for Hemrick. I really want him. Well, I really want Hemrick to get off to a great start in the playoffs, and I just hope he can get that win sometime soon.
I had the same picks for the same reasons, so we won't belabor the point. But right now, I purposely waited for the truck picks and the Xfinity picks before we get to the colossal butt whooping that is the picks in the Cup Series.
Yeah.
So we'll go to the Truck Series. Corey had Johnny Sauter as his lock. He finished second. He had Stuart Friesen as a sleeper. He finished 17th. You add that up, you get 19. You divide it by 2. Corey, your average finish was 9.5. I had Todd Gilliland as my lock, 27th. I had Brett Moffitt as my sleeper. He finished 11th. That's a grand total of 38. You divide that by 2, it's 19. Corey was the Truck Series champion for this week.
Thank you.
You're welcome. On the Xfinity Series this week, Corey had Ross Chastain as his lock, and he finished first. Good job by you. That's where the happiness ends. He had Daniel Hemrick as his sleeper. He finished 29th. That's a finish of 30. You divide that in half. Corey, your finish this week was 15th. I had as my lock Austin Cindric, who finished 9th. I had Elliott Sadler as my sleeper, who finished 5th. That's a grand total of 14. You divide that in half. I get 7. Finally, an Xfinity Series win for me. And that's where we're going to stop. We're not going to say anything about who's going to be happy and who's going to be sad, because the Cup Series was a colossal butt whooping, and the loser has probably got Nike marks on his butt right now from the other one. We're about to find out as we move on to the points and then the Cup Series. So Justin Allgaier retains the lead with 2039. Christopher Bell second with 2032. Elliott Sadler third, 2011. In a virtual tie with fourth place Cole Custer at 2011. Tyler Reddick has 2010 in a virtual tie with number 6 Ross Chastain with 2010 in a virtual tie with number 7 Daniel Hemrick with 2010. Brandon Jones is 8th with 2006. Matt Tiff 9th with 2003 in a virtual tie with 10th Ryan Truex 2003. Austin Cindric is 11th with 2001. And Ryan Reed rounds out the top 12 championship drivers with 2,000 points. Now, these are reset points.
Yep.
But let me point out, this is why I think the Xfinity Series is going to be the most exciting version of the playoffs in all 3 NASCAR series. The difference between 3rd and 12th is only 11 points. There's going to be a lot of moving and shaking going on, and there's going to be from Sadler, Custer, Reddick, Chastain, Hemrick, Jones, Tiff, Truex, Cindric, and Reed, a lot of aggressive, hard driving going forward in these playoffs to make sure that they get just one more, maybe that win. The win would be great. You stamp your ticket. But, my God, have you ever seen anything this close in your years of watching racing?
I've only seen a couple races where it came down the wire, but I just look at the Xfinity Series season so far this year, and the only 2 drivers that I think, are going to be the ones to watch are pretty much going to be Justin Allgaier and Christopher Bell. But then other guys that come to mention, that could make a run in these playoffs are definitely going to be Custer, Sadler, and Daniel Hemrick. And I think if you look at it, it's going to come down to those 5 or 6 drivers, between now and then when we get to the second to last race at ISM Raceway, known as Phoenix. So, and I just look at my championship 4, and I just look at it. I have Allgaier, Bell, Custer, and Hemrick going to the championship 4, and basically I would be leaving Sadler out. But I don't know. I mean, this is going to be very interesting. Of course, the Xfinity Series doesn't have a restrictor plate race in the playoffs, but they have a road course, which yet again, the Roval is going to be the second to last race in the first round, if you kind of think about it. So I would say, everybody's going to want to win at either Richmond or pretty much Dover, because, I just look at, the Roval coming up in 2 weeks. That's definitely going to be a race where Justin Allgaier is definitely going to win because, like we saw this year, Allgaier's been pretty much dominant when it comes to road course racing this season. And I just look at it, you know, this is I would say right now this is definitely has to be Justin Allgaier's championship to lose at this point.
Quite possibly. It's a lot like talking about Christopher Bell last year on the Truck Series. My championship four, if I remember from last week correctly, was Allgaier, Bell, Sadler, Custer. But I definitely have to look at Ross Chastain as a very much a sleeper to unseat one of them. Now, with 12 drivers, I'm not quite sure what the breakdown is with 10 races. How many are eliminated in each round?
4.
4 eliminated in each round. Okay, so let me break this down. So there's only 3 rounds?
There's actually 2 rounds because the first round you'd have Richmond, Roval, and Dover, and then the second round you have Kansas, Texas, Phoenix.
Okay, my mistake. So if I'm looking at this list, and again, let's not forget, 3rd to 12th is separated by 11 points.
Yeah.
If you have to bounce 4 guys out of these playoffs, come the Roval, who's it going to be?
Oh, my 4 ones are going to be easy. It's got to be Reddick, Brandon Jones, Ryan Truex, and Ryan Reed.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I had Jones, Tiff, Truex, Reed.
Okay.
I didn't have Tyler Reddick in there. I just think there's more that this kid is capable of, and he's going to show it. He's going to, again, catch the fire at the right time.
Right.
Especially in the playoffs. All you have to do, run well, maybe throw a victory in, stamp your ticket to the next round, boom sauce, you're there.
Right.
We'll find out as we go along. But then again, as we go along, we talk about the South Point race, Las Vegas Motor Speedway, Cup Series Jones, and continuing his winning ways. 4 weeks ago, Corey and I are talking about Brad Keselowski. You got to do something. You have to show that you still have the passion, you still have the fire. Yes, you're in the playoffs, but what are you going to do to cement it? Well, he won 3 in a row, this being his 3rd. Wow, wow, wow. His pitch strategy, his just track position, everything that they did this Sunday was perfection, in my opinion.
I couldn't probably agree more. And after he won that race at Vegas, I just thought to myself, you know, I really think Keselowski and that 2 team, they're peaking at the right time. And let's go back to a few weeks ago. We go to Darlington. It's race 25 out of 26, and everyone's all saying, okay, when is Keselowski going to win a race? Because this has been, he never wins like late in the season. Well, there was one part where he won in the playoffs one time, and that was only his one victory in 2013. So you go to Darlington, he ends up winning. Everyone's like, okay, you get that first win, you have a new winner, so forth. Okay, now what do we see next? So now you go to Indianapolis a week ago, wins back-to-back races. So everyone's like, okay, Keselowski winning back-to-back. Yeah, definitely, could be one to watch. And then you go to Vegas, ends up winning 3 in a row, and it's completely different. So now, they're all saying, I really think Keselowski's onto something. And from what everyone's all saying at this point, I really think, Keselowski's going to be that 4th guy that's going to contend with the big 3, in my opinion.
Oh, we talked about that. You actually had a post, which I didn't write down the results. We'll bring that up next week because this is race 1 of the playoffs for the Cup Series. Who do you think the championship 4 are going to be? And I know I answered. I believe Zach Kuhn answered. Good job by you, Zach. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mark Azarju answered. Thank you, Mark. Good job by you. A couple others answered. Some of the names that were thrown out, obviously you had Truex, Busch, Harvick. Everybody had Truex, Busch, Harvick. But some of the names we saw were Keselowski, Logano. I think one person, if I'm not mistaken, actually put Kyle Larson in there. So it's really going to be interesting going forward. And the more we talk about this race and the bad luck that some of these guys had, it's really difficult right now after race 1 in the heat with the tire problems, with everything that went on, just unfortunate incidents and accidents. I'll just point to when Harvick blew his tire. Eric Jones had nowhere to go.
Yeah.
If Eric Jones could go low, we're not having a conversation about bad luck for Eric Jones.
Right.
But Eric Jones had nowhere to go, ran right into the back of Harvick. Harvick was already going to be out. Now you have two playoff drivers out of the race. It seemed every time we turned around in this race, we watched another playoff driver get his butt handed to him. Jones, Harvick, Elliott, who am I looking at here? Hamlin. Just over and over again. Bad luck, bad luck, bad luck.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, I mean, there were a number of guys, they either got caught up in an accident or pretty much had the tire failure and so forth whatsoever. And I mean, yeah, it was a hot day at Vegas. The tires were pretty much worn out on almost everybody. But now that you go to a new race, you go to Richmond. I mean, there's going to be some guys, that you'll see, bounce back. Uh, I look at guys like Denny Hamlin. He's been really good when it comes to Richmond the last few years. I look at Chase Elliott, finished runner-up in the spring race, and then you look at Harvick, who's won at Richmond a couple of times before. And then, you look at the guys that kind of finished like close to the back, but not as like near the back as possible. I mean, yeah, Bowman, 19th, not really good showing. And then Boyer, I really want to see a lot of things out of this 14 team. And, to go to Richmond for him, with 2 wins, he's going to be a one to watch for as well. Because, I look at Boyer, he's a short track guy himself. But you look at seven of the top 10 finishers, were pretty much playoff drivers. Guys like Keselowski, Larson, Truex, Logano, Blaney, Almirola, Kyle Busch. And what's funny about this is you had
the top 7 of the entire race.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so anyways, and you also look at the top 7, 3 of the Penske drivers ended up coming home in the top 5. And I kind of looked at this really clearly, and I thought, okay, Keselowski's won, Logano's won, but Blaney is the only Penske driver that is yet to win a race. And I expected him, I think ever since like week 1 at Daytona, to him to get a win, in the regular season and so forth. But there were some bad luck that happened with that 12 team. But I just look at it and I say, okay, I'd say at this point, I think Blaney's going to steal a win. I don't know where it's going to be at, and I don't know when, but, I really want to see Blaney do something in that 12 car.
You say steal a win, and I have to disagree with you. Judging on how well he's run this season, he has been so close so many times. Not quite Chase Elliott close, which when Chase Elliott finally got his win at the road course, everybody and their brother said, ring the bell, let's do this. Ryan Blaney is destined to win this season.
Yeah.
It's not a foregone conclusion, but we all feel it. When you talk about a guy like that, you want to talk about stealing a win? In my opinion, before we break down the finishing order, the points, the picks, etc., you know who's going to steal a win this season? If anybody, if he doesn't get bounced out first, Jimmie Johnson.
Right.
50 race losing streak. I am not picking on you, Jimmie Johnson fan. I am not disparaging your driver. I'm telling you the truth. That's kind of what we do here on C+J Speedway Review. Jimmie Johnson fan, you should be scared. You should be sleeping with one eye open, gripping your pillow tight, because this is not the season you want your driver to have.
Right.
If there's going to be anybody going to Richmond next week, the Roval the week after, or even going forward, should he slip himself forward into the playoffs, there are a lot of tracks where Jimmie Johnson has been domination Jones throughout his career. Going to Miami, he's done well at Phoenix, he's done well at Martinsville. Down the line, when Jimmie Johnson, I've already hit the panic button months ago in May. After Labor Day, not Labor Day, Memorial Day, I hit that panic button. Yeah, Corey said, no, you have to wait a little bit. I'm kind of happy and sad at the same time to say I was right, because, again, he's the 7-time champion. He is probably the most prolific driver on the series right now, every single week that you get to compete against, and he's basically worth a plateful of poop.
Right.
So that's the way I look at that.
Yeah, and I look at Johnson, I mean, I'd have to say the only racetrack where I think Johnson could win the race would definitely have to be Talladega.
I don't know about that. I think there's a couple others. He could surprise us on the Roval. because he was pretty well. I want to say both at Sonoma and Watkins Glen. He's got a pretty good record.
He has one win at Sonoma back in 2010. He's never won at Watkins Glen before.
But I'm talking top 10, top 5,
Yeah.
etc., so forth. He's got a
Well,
pretty
yeah,
decent record.
no, I mean, not too bad, but, I just look at it, I say, okay, Johnson's a decent road course guy, but I don't, see him as, like, the best road course guy, Leo, like, unlike, what Harvick and Kyle Busch and Logano, those guys have done on the road courses. But I would say if, Johnson can get a win on the Roval, especially at Charlotte, where he's, dominated, like, from, like, the early 2000s and whatnot, I'd be really surprised.
I certainly hope. I'm hoping against hope that maybe Jimmy Johnson becomes like the John Cena of NASCAR, where you don't see that win coming, but it's certainly going to come.
Right.
Let's break down the finish of the South Point 400. It was Brad Keselowski once again coming home first. I want to point this out real quick. Didn't lead the most laps. I think he led the second most laps.
Yeah.
But again, pitch strategy was the king for that number 2 car. Kyle Larson second, Martin Truex Jr. third, Joey Logano fourth, Ryan Blaney fifth, Eric Almirola sixth, Kyle Busch seventh, Daniel Suarez eighth, Ryan Newman ninth, and Paul Menard comes home in 10th. Other notables, Austin Dillon 11th. Moving down the list, I just want to throw these couple names out here because I mentioned it earlier about how many underfunded guys snuck their way into good positions. Regan Smith, 12th. Trevor Bayne, 13th. Chris Buescher, 15th. Corey LaJoie, 16th. J.J. Yaley somehow accidentally finished in 17th. Going down the list, Kurt Busch, 21st. Jimmy Johnson, 22nd. Clint Boyer, 23rd. Where are we going? Denny Hamlin, 32nd. Jamie McMurray, 35th. Chase Elliott, 36th. Bubba Wallace, 38th. Kevin Harvick, 39th. And Eric Jones rounds out the bottom of the barrel with 40. This one's going to be tough, and I'm going to give you my happy and sad first. This was really tough. But my happy goes to Martin Truex Jr. He puts himself at the top of the heap. He's one of the big 3. But if you really want to make a statement, if you can't win, at least get on the podium. 1, 2, 3. And with his third place finish, Martin Truex Jr. leapfrogs Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, Kevin Harvick to get to number 1 in the standings. My sad, yes, I'm going to be a homer for a minute. As much as I'd like to pick Eric Jones, who had nowhere to go during that crash, yeah, I'm going to pick my own driver. I'm going to pick Kevin Harvick as my sad. Had a really good day. He was running well, top 10 most of the day. He led 14 laps. Then the tire goes down and unfortunately collects Eric Jones. So if I have like a sad junior, I'm going to pick Eric Jones. But Kevin Harvick is my sad. I'm cementing that pick.
All right. So my happy for this one would definitely have to go to Kyle Larson. I mean, had a great run on Sunday, finished runner-up, and everyone was expecting, okay, Larson was going to be a lot better than what he was last year. And, as much as he didn't score a win in the regular season, I really think this is going to be, a kid that, is going to not only surprise some people, but then yet again, like, I think he's going to do a lot better than what he did last season, especially, like, playoff-wise and stuff, because let's be honest, I mean, getting eliminated at Kansas, I don't think anybody saw that coming, but I just look at this 42 team. I mean, yeah, they've been good all season, but, I really want to see a lot more out of them this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then my sad, my sad would definitely have to go to Harvick as well because, I picked him to win the race, and especially the fact that he won at Vegas back in the spring, got, pretty much kind of tired, like, near the end and so forth. But, yeah, I can see Harvick, bouncing back after this one.
Well, I'm not going to go to the points because you already lied to the people. You did not pick Harvick to win the race. Let's do the picks first, then we'll go to the points.
Okay.
Corey, you had Kyle Busch as your lock. He finished 7th. You had Eric Almirola as your sleeper. He finished 6th. You had Ryan Blaney as your hopeful. He finished 5th. You add that up, it's 18. You divide that by 3. Your finish this week, my friend, was 6th. However, you took that Nike sneaker, you turned it sideways, you shined it up real nice, and you pointed it straight at my butt. because my sleeper was Brad Keselowski. He finished first. Starting to sweat a little bit, aren't you?
Yeah.
I picked Kyle Larson as my sleeper. He finished second. It's
Uh,
starting to look bad, isn't it? Until you get to my lock, Kevin Harvick, 39th. You add that up, you get a total of 42. You divide that by 3. My finish was 21, and Corey just basically sent me home crying without a snack this week. So that's why I'm saying that, not only did you lie to the fine folks, but with your fantastic picks, and I was on my way to a great finish until Harvick blew a tire. This could have been the closest ever if Harvick had not blown a tire and wrecked my entire day. Damn you,
right.
Kevin Harvick. Damn you, damn you, damn you. Having said that, still love you, brother. Always will. Right
All
here.
right.
See? There he is right
Yep.
there. Okay, here we go. Here come the points now. And then the question that we asked on the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series. We'll ask that in a moment. Martin Truex Jr. is leading the points with 2087. Kyle Busch second with 2085. Brad Keselowski third with 2069. Kevin Harvick fourth with 2060. Those 50 playoff points really did him a favor in this race. Fifth is Joey Logano with 2056. Kurt Busch is sixth with 2046. Ryan Blaney is seventh with 2042. Kyle Larson eighth with 2041. Eric Almirola is ninth with 2034. Austin Dillon 10th with 2031. Clint Boyer 11th with 2029. Alex Bowman 12th with 2028. Jimmy Johnson 13th with 2022. Chase Elliott is 14th with 2019. Eric Jones 15th with 2009. And Denny Hamlin is at the bottom of the standings for the playoffs with 2008. Now, here comes the question. It was the first race of the playoffs. Las Vegas notwithstanding, heat notwithstanding, tire problems notwithstanding. If right now you had to pick the 4 guys that are going to get bounced out of this playoffs after we leave the Charlotte Roval, who are they going to be?
All right. So my 4 guys would definitely have to be Austin Dillon, Alex Bowman, Jimmy Johnson, and my 4th one was kind of a little bit tricky, but okay. So my 4th guy, I'm gonna have to say Hamlin on this one.
Wow. We had the same 3 picks with Dillon, Bowman, Johnson, but my 4th is Clint Boyer. With the exception of Talladega, those last bunch of races, there's not a lot of tracks where I think Clint Boyer is going to light the world on fire. There's just something missing in that team at those tracks. I don't have a lot of faith in Clint Boyer going forward. As much as I like the fact that Stewart Haas has placed all 4 of their drivers in the playoffs, which means A, Gene Haas and Tony Stewart are doing something right picking their drivers, and B, Clint Boyer still has a little steam underneath him. When I look at the 4 drivers from Stewart Haas, I just see Clint Boyer being the odd man out.
Yeah, I think Boyer, I mean, Richmond's a really good track for him. And then, of course, the Roval, he's had a really decent road course record. I mean, he's won at Sonoma 1 time. But I just look at this season. I mean, yeah, he had the 2 wins in the regular season. And then, of course, there were some races where he ran good. But then, yet again, like, I was expecting him to win a lot more races, comparing to what Harvick, he won, like, gosh, I want to say, like, maybe 7 races in the regular season and so forth.
7.
But 7. But no, I just look at Boyer and I say, okay, I can see him making the next round. But then once we get to the round of 12, then of course, Talladega, that's going to be the racetrack where Boyer's really good when it comes to plate racing, and then the mile and a halfs, Kansas, is going to be a good feature, and then Dover, I expect them to have a good run too. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see if Boyer can make it, but if not, he's just going to have to focus on next year.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot. It's not
Okay.
something I do often, but I'm going to put you on the spot. Generally, when it comes to the question of the week, which you guys really need to get out either on Facebook, Twitter, or wherever and answer the question of the week. Corey, I want you in your mind right now, first thing that pops into your head, what should be this week's question of the week?
What should be this question of the week? Okay.
Is Chelsea with the wrong man?
Oh, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
picking on you, kid. Just
yeah.
think.
Okay, so, all right. What are you most looking forward to on the Roval and why?
Oh, wow. If I had to answer that question, I would say the thing I'm most looking forward to is how the drivers react. I don't know how much testing they've had at the Roval. I don't know how comfortable they are. This is really the wild card of the playoffs. Every
Yeah,
year, you have the 10 races. They're racetracks you've been to once already. And if you're a veteran, you've been to these racetracks a dozen times.
right.
Yes, we've been to Charlotte. Yes, we've driven the 2.5 mile D shaped oval. We've never run it like this. So
Right.
for me, what I'm looking at, I'm just looking at the uncertainty. The we're going to see something we've never seen before. We're going to see a winner that perhaps we've never seen before. I honestly think that maybe the Roval is going to give us somebody who's going to get their first win ever. By the same token, we may see a road course specialist, Logano, Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, uh, blow the competition away. It's the uncertainty. We have nothing to go on. When we make our picks in 2 weeks for the Roval, we're going in blind.
Yeah.
And it's probably my favorite thing about this upcoming race.
But now there's going to be a lot of scenarios going into this one. So I probably say one of my two scenarios would be, pretty much how, everyone's going to get down that first corner double wide because I think if you look at it, when it comes to starts and restarts, I think you're going to see a lot of wrecks going down that first corner, especially when you're going into like the infield and so forth whatsoever. And I just think, okay, whether if it's battling for the lead or whatever, I could probably see like, maybe one or two cars get taken out, because, it's everyone's going to get, checked up and then there's going to be nowhere to go and so forth. But the one thing that's very interesting about this Roval is, you go to a road course, let's say like, Watkins Glen, you'll see the
Mm-hmm.
cars go by within like, I don't know, like 20 seconds or so. But then you go
Right.
to the Roval, you can see like the whole entire racetrack, including the road course in the infield, so forth. So I really think Charlotte Motor Speedway did a really great job with this. And let's say if NASCAR hits a home run, then they'll say, okay, maybe we can have a Roval kind of like what we did at Charlotte, at another track, but it would have to be somewhere like that's big, you know, 1 mile tracks, no. Short tracks definitely would be a no. But I'd say if you wanted to do like a Roval at another track, you'd have to do it at like either at a super speedway, kind of like how the Rolex 24 at Daytona always does their infield road course, kind of like that, or pretty much on the mile and a halfs, like whether it be Charlotte or anywhere else and so forth. Now,
Mm-hmm.
my other big question is, let's say if it rains, then that's going to put a lot of drivers, especially the Cup guys who had never raced in the rain before, be a lot more interesting. So now I'm kind of
Absolutely.
thinking to myself, okay, if it rains, then it's going to make it even more exciting, but then it's going to make it a lot better because, now you're going to see guys, that have never run in the rain before, try to like figure it all out. And I remember one time, uh, there was a race. I think it was up in Canada in the Xfinity race. I think it was like the year after they first did it. It was in 2009, and so it rained. It rained like for about a couple minutes. So then NASCAR put on the rain tires whatsoever. But I can't even recall, how many cars got taken out in a crash. Whether if it was either like chain reaction or something, or if somebody pretty much, went sideways and went right through the wet grass and they couldn't stop in time. And once you go in that wet grass, there's like literally nothing you could do. It's like driving on a sheet of ice and whatever and so forth. But I'd say if you look at that, it's going to make things a lot interesting. But then let's say if it does rain and you have a lot of the playoff drivers get taken out, which is pretty much the last race of the first round, everybody, could be in jeopardy.
Absolutely. And I know we're running a little bit long, which we generally don't do. So before we get too deep into this conversation, let's go to our picks for the week. Corey, tell us where we're at, what day, and where we can find it.
All right, so the Xfinity Series will be racing on Friday for the start of their playoffs. You can catch the race, I believe it's 7:30 Eastern Time on NBCSN. You can stream it live on the NBC Sports app. And then, of course, MRN Motor Racing Network.
The voice of NASCAR.
We'll be there on Friday night, and hopefully they can do double this weekend. So, real quick going down to the list. So, the only guy that used to be in Cup that's now retired, Dale Earnhardt Jr., will be in the 88 car on Friday night. So, this will be his first start since he was in the car at Homestead back in November. But looking down through the list, you have Cole Custer, you have Elliott Sadler, Matt Tiff, Shane Lee, Michael Annett, Justin Allgaier, Tyler Reddick, Ryan Truex, Catherine Legg, who drives in the sports car series. Anyways, Ryan Reed, Ryan Preece, Brandon Jones, Christopher Bell, Daniel Hemrick, Austin Cindric, Spencer Gallagher, Alex LeBay. Ross Chastain will be back in the 42 car for the third time this weekend. Ty Majeski, Matt Mills, and of course Dale Jr., and more importantly, Jeff Green.
Okay. No, we already know where Jeff Green's going to finish, so it really doesn't matter. Give me your lock and give me your sleeper, sir.
Okay, so my lock for this race. All right, so my lock, I'm going to have to go with Daniel Hemrick because, I think with him, I really want to see this team perform well, and I really want to see them win a race. And I think with Hemrick, I mean, of course, he's a short track guy, and I think he can get the job done, and I'm hoping he can do a lot of things in that 21 car. My sleeper would definitely have to go to Dale Jr. because this is the first time being back in a car since Homestead in November, and and he goes to Richmond where he's won there twice before. In fact, it's funny because his last Xfinity win came at Richmond back in 2016 when they used to do the Dash for Cash races when they broke it down by like 3 stages. Well, that was like pretty much the pre-birth of stage racing to what it is now and so forth. But yeah, definitely want to see a great run for the 88 team, and hopefully he can get a win. That'd be awesome.
Wouldn't it? Because that's my lock this week is Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Yeah.
Just because it's going to be great to see Dale behind the wheel again. Even if it's an Xfinity race, I understand why he's doing it. He's doing it for the right reasons. And if there's anybody I want to see win this race, and because we don't do hopefuls on the Xfinity series unless the Cup guys are off, I'm just picking Dale Jr. right away. Stamp it, that's my lock. Which means I have to move my original lock to my sleeper position, which is Justin Allgaier. This is a guy that's going to basically tell these people, I'm the guy you need to follow, you have to follow, and if you want to win this championship, I'm the guy you have to beat to do it.
Absolutely.
So somehow I didn't write down your lock. I believe it was Hemrick, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, let me just write that down. Now we move forward. We're going to the Cup Series. Saturday night under the lights. My friend, tell me where and when these people can find it.
So this will be the only night race in the playoffs, especially with Richmond being first ever in the playoffs. So 7:30 on Saturday will be the Federated Auto Parts 400. 7:30 on NBCSN. Stream it live on the NBC Sports app. And then, of course, MRN, the Motor Racing Network.
Boo! I know. I was playing with you.
All right.
The voice of NASCAR. If I didn't throw a curveball at you every now and again, you wouldn't know what to do.
Right. I was I'm kind of a deer in the headlights, if you ask me.
You're learning, man. It's all good.
Yeah.
I know. But, see, usually when you say PRN, your face just kind of crinkles, and the people watching go, okay, here it comes. Chris is going to boo now. But no, I wanted, when you said MRN, I was like, I'm going to throw a curveball at him. This is the one I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
All right. We already know the list of players. Is there anybody in the race that we should know about that isn't usually in the race?
Well, let's see. Cole Custer's going to be in the 51 car on Saturday night, so he's going to be making another Cup start so far. And then other than that, you have Regan Smith, who'll be back in the 95 car again this weekend, subbing for Casey Kane. And, yeah, I mean, not too many of the big guys besides you got the Cup playoff drivers.
Okay. Well, I'm going to lead this one off. I said I'm only going to pick playoff drivers going forward because, let's be honest, that's why we're here. But
Yep.
at this racetrack, even if I wanted to go outside of the playoff drivers, these would be the three gentlemen I pick. My lock this week: momentum, 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 momentum. Brad Keselowski. Gotta pick Brad Kes going forward. Just these last 3 weeks, he has shown the world you need to wake up and see me, follow me, and basically be afraid of me. If you're the big three right now, be afraid, be very afraid. My sleeper is going to be the hometown boy, Denny Hamlin. I've watched him wheel that track over and over again, and he's Denny Hamlin. He's freaking
Yeah.
Denny Hamlin. He can
Right.
sneak a win at Richmond or sneak a win anywhere. And if anybody needs a win right now, by God, it's that 11 team. My hopeful, because I'm a homer, and because I don't want to get bounced out of the playoffs in round one, I'm picking Kevin Harvick as my hopeful.
Okay. And I know Harvick's had a lot of success at Richmond over the
Yes,
years.
he has.
Yeah.
Now, sir, on to your 3 picks.
Okay, so my lock for this one was also a little bit tricky, but then I thought, okay, there's a few guys that have run at Richmond pretty well the last few years. So I would say with my lock, I'm going to have to go with Kyle Busch. Even though he won the race back in the spring, he has a couple wins at Richmond. I could definitely see this as a Kyle Busch type of race. The way that he ran back in the spring, yes, he won 3 straight races, which, of course, with Keselowski. I know there's only 3 drivers that have won 3 straight races in the season, which I don't think anybody's ever seen that before. So Kyle
No,
Busch is
it's
going to be my
fantastic.
lock. So Kyle Busch is going to be my lock. And then my sleeper for this one, okay, my sleeper for this one, I'm going to have to go with Kyle Larson, even though he won last year's race. I really want to see a lot more out of this 42 team. Yes, he finished second this past week. Okay, good start to the playoffs so far, but I really want to see more, especially, with last year being bounced out early. Didn't really have for him what to show for it, but yeah, definitely want to look out for the 42 car. And, he's another one that could possibly sneak in a win pretty soon. My hopeful for this one, I'm going to go with Clint Boyer. Now
Wow.
he's a guy that that runs really well when it comes to the short tracks, and let's not to mention he won at Martinsville back in the spring, and then he's won at Richmond twice, so he's one guy that I'm going to be keeping my eye on Saturday night.
Okay, fantastic. All the way around. Corey, is there anything you want to pimp, plug, or otherwise push on the people?
All right, so continue to follow us on the C&J Speedway show. You can follow us on Facebook and then, of course, YouTube, which, of course, guys, don't forget to, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell, then you hit the notifications and whatsoever. I know Chelsea is watching this right now,
Oh,
which, of
here we
course, I love
go.
her and all that stuff. And
Good granny. Every single week I got to deal with this.
speaking of which,
Hi, YouTube
yeah,
listeners.
she was at
Oh,
my
my
house.
God.
So she was at my house tonight watching the show, and and she's another one that's one of our big fans of the show, and of course she's rooting for Martin Truex Jr. to win the championship this year, and so far got off to a great start, which I'm really happy about. Well, she's happy about mostly. So, anyways, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We are at CJ Speedway. Twitter, we are at CJ underscore Speedway. And also, other than that, I want to give a shout out to my friends right now that are at Norfolk Prison as they are doing their prison reunion for the third Wednesday of the month. So usually after the prison retreat, we always go back there for like the third Wednesday of the month, and we ask like how, we ask them like how they're doing, and and it was funny because I got to tell you this story. So the first time that I went back after, ever since after the retreat back in May was last month actually, and there were a few guys that kind of remembered me pretty well, and the guys that were on the retreat back in May, I didn't really see them, either because they were transferred or they kind of got released or whatever happened and so forth. I don't know. Like, I never went to law school, or especially the fact that I never stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night. But anyways, there was actually this one guy that kind of looked almost like Jason Statham almost, but he was like skinny and he was almost like my height. And I'm not going to say the person's name because of, privacy issues, whatever. But so he always asked me, like, say, like, oh, how's your family doing? And I told him my family's doing good. And when you get a chance, just make sure you tell your dad I said hi, and I'll tell him. Yeah, I'll make sure to tell him. But yeah, he's a good kid, and I remember I saw him, and he's doing pretty good. But anyways, that's what I got to pimp and plug this week. And let's see, and looks like close the show out. Looks like Chris says we have to close the show out, and I think this is probably it. So until next week, we are going to recap Richmond, the Xfinity, and the Cup Series, and we will also preview the Charlotte Roval, which is coming up in 2 weeks. And race fans, I have to tell you, this is going
I
to be
don't know
my
what the hell happened, and
yeah.
pardon me for interrupting, but just as Chelsea comes in and says, "Hi, YouTube guys," my phone just decided to
there's Chelsea?
say, "Kiss a back." Oh my God! Look,
Yeah.
I'm looking at me, looking at you, looking at me, looking at. Hi, Chelsea. How are you?
She's doing
Really?
great, and yeah, she's
Killing
doing
me
great.
right
She's
now.
watching.
Killing me.
She is watching the show, and I can pretty much say another one of our biggest fans that
Good.
watches every
We
week.
need more like her every single week.
But
Look, she's just doing her thing.
Yeah. Anyways.
Oh my God. My vein is popping. I gotta just.
All right.
Good. Oh, you're gonna put the gimmick on.
Now you can hear him.
Oh, now we get
Wait,
some
what is
extra
it?
Now you
gimmick.
can just talk to him.
Oh, hi,
Hi,
Chris.
how are you this week?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
Oh, I am fantastic. Thank you for joining us once again.
He's stealing my spot. Help me.
No. You know what? This is the new C&J Speedway review. Chelsea and Jabroni. This is the new gimmick right here.
Oh, there we go. I like that.
All right. Well, Chelsea, since you
Yes.
decided to rear your not so ugly head,
Surprise.
How's that?
I want you to make one pick, just one, for the Cup race this weekend. I'm going to write it down on this little piece of paper right here that I keep every single week. Chelsea, who's going to win the Cup race at Richmond this Sunday? And if you say Martin Truex Jr., you're fired.
No, I'm not. I will say Kyle Busch.
Kyle Busch, well, you're fired as well, so it doesn't matter. It does. Well, anyway, thank you once again for joining us. I'm sorry to the YouTubers who I lost for just a minute or two because my phone decided to be Gimmick Jones. You may now give the headphones back to Corey. We're going to close this out. Always wonderful to see you.
Good to see you too, Chris. Have a nice night.
Thank you. I'm going to try. You do the same. And now is the dead air as Corey goes back to being the co-host of this show.
Yes.
As the vein pops out of my forehead because here we go again. I'm just kidding. You pimped it out. You plugged it out. All I've got to say is if you don't do it already, listen to the Logan Jabroni Show. Fantastic. We had a great episode last night. Heartbreaking episode. Corey, you should have Chelsea listen to it. We interviewed U.S. Taekwondo champion Mandy Malone about the sexual assault that she went through and the courage that she had to stand up and report said sexual assaults. And just as a parent, I thought it was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
As a sports fan, I thought it was riveting. And just as a human being, I thought it was disgusting what happened to her. But Mandy is a quality human being. Eddie, Mike, all of us, we agree. Mandy's class. So, give it a listen. If you don't give it a listen, why the hell aren't you listening? But most important, let's talk C&J Speed Review. I just want to make a quick comment. Neither of us get paid for doing this, although we'd love to. Podcasting is a labor of love. And once you get subscribers and once you get listeners and once the ball starts rolling, then everybody gets paid. That's how this system works. So if you want Corey or Chris or Eddie or Mike or anybody in the Focus Digital Network to get paid, there's ways to do that. You can go to www.patreon.com/Loki Jabroni. That is the hub of the Focus Digital Network. Donate to the shows. You want to buy some merchandise, and Eddie, I know, has talked about building C&J Speedway merchandise to add to the Loki Jabroni Show page. go to www.cafepress.com/LokiandJabroni, buy some stuff. Or go to lokiandjabroni.com and click on our affiliate links and buy stuff from Amazon, WWE, the monthly clubs, any one of our many affiliates, and no hidden fees, no extra charges. They just kick back a little bit toward production and costs. Corey, you need to put that bicep down. You're killing me with your 21-inch python right now. Having said that, what we do is a labor of love. Some call it a hobby. We call it a labor of love. We sit with our friends and we talk about the things we love, whether it's the Loki and Jabroni Show, C&J Speedway Review, Loki's Gaming Corner, the Writer Focus, the Libertarian Focus, the Keto Diet Focus. Whatever it is that we do, it's a labor of love. And the more you show us your love, the more we can show you our love. But we're not going to stop because you're not giving us the dollar bill. We're going to keep going because we love what we do every single week. I love sitting here talking about racing with Corey because I don't have a whole lot of friends around here that want to talk about racing.
Right.
I love sitting here on Tuesday nights with the guys because not a lot of people want to engage in open-minded conversation. We do it because we love it. And if you can't get that, Shawn Michaels and Triple H got 2 words for you, and I'm not going to say them here. Corey, you got anything to say to the people before we close?
I think that's about it for me.
Stellar drop-in, kid. Those broadcasting classes are working out well. Guys, he's Corey Huffnagel. I'm Chris Burns. Behind the curtain that you're not supposed to look behind is Eddie Focus producing the show. Somewhere to the immediate right of Corey Huffnagel is Chelsea, who he talks about every single week. Oh, God, here it comes. Hi, Chelsea. We're the C&J Speedway Review. Join us next week. We'll break down Richmond, and we're going to have a good time doing it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good night.